and we are live on YouTube.
Live and direct.
All right. Well, thank you. And thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Franchise Academy. And this is a place to come to learn everything about business, franchised or not. I have a special guest who's a small business expert. So Kyle Griffith is with me today. And I met Kyle a couple of years back at a business broker. What was it? A
Was
get
it
together?
association
The
meeting? Yeah,
association.
yeah.
The association. And we hit it off, and we've been kind of friendly ever since. And the thing that Kyle does, which I think is so unique, is this mergers and acquisitions. He actually helps businesses get ready to sell, and senior owners of businesses that want to get out of their business and retire. He helps get it all ready. So I got his bio here. So let me do it the easy way and read the bio. So Kyle is the managing partner for the NYBB group, and for more than 10 years, he's helped mid and small and mid-sized businesses that need to either merge or make an acquisition of another business. Kyle really gets into and loves the HVAC businesses, trucking and distribution industries. But he has lent his experience to all sorts of people, all different sectors. That's why I want to bring him on. But more than that, he's also certified. He's a certified business intermediary. So it's a CBI, they call it. And he's also involved with the Business Broker Association, IBBA, which is that national now?
It's international, actually. We have members in Canada, Europe, Australia, Canada.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
And you're the chairman of the New York Business Association, right? The Business Broker Association.
Correct. New York City. Correct.
Well, that's cool. And of course, you're married with two beautiful daughters, and you're all about sports, and you're all about entrepreneurship, which is a sport in itself.
It is. It is. Tell me about it.
So how did you get into business brokering? I mean, it's kind of such a small niche thing to do. How did this happen?
Man, I love what I do. I love it. And I just kind of fell into it. We talk about entrepreneurship. So I've either started, partnered, or built other businesses. And I've made some money, lost a lot of money trying to recreate the wheel and do things my way, which is usually the wrong way. And a colleague of mine reached out to me and said, "Hey, Kyle, you ever thought about selling businesses?" When he mentioned that to me, my first inclination was, well, hey, I actually get a chance to learn from all these seasoned entrepreneurs and business people how they have built their business. I'll say, wait, let me think about this. So you're telling me I'm going to get a chance to meet all of these business owners face to face, learn about how they built their company, learn about all the greatness they have done, and most importantly, learn more about their mistakes so I don't make them myself. I say, hey, count me, I'm all in. So originally, that's how I get started, because I wanted to learn about different types of businesses, how to value businesses, how to grow businesses, how to build businesses, and eventually how to sell businesses.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Such a unique thing and such a great niche. So you had you written a little document called the 11. Let me get the title right. It's the 11 deadly mistakes made by sellers.
Right. So this is another thing that I didn't write it. My partner wrote it, but this is another thing. I didn't want to recreate the wheel. When I first started with the company about 10 years ago, they already started 6 years prior. We've been in business for about 16 years. My partner, Anthony, came up with these 11 mistakes. I was like, hey, let's just roll with it. We don't need to recreate it. So we learn from our mistakes and want to build upon it. And we want to use our experience and lend that to our sellers. But sometimes you still have to learn the hard way, right, Tom?
Right.
You have kids, right? So sometimes you tell them, hey, don't do that. And they just need to do it to learn for themselves what not to do. So
you're so right. And Anthony himself is just a wealth of knowledge, just so much experience, and such a humble individual. He's such a great guy.
Yeah.
And Tony over there too. Great, just a great group of folks to work with. And I've met them all over at the association meeting.
You got associated.
I got associated.
Officially.
Yeah. it felt a little bit like being like in a room with the mafia, but that's a whole other story.
It's funny. That's what I felt when I came in. I was probably, probably the only person at that time. I was under 40, probably the only person under 40 and African American. Is like, hey, I'm in the right room here.
Yeah, right.
Now, it is a industry that is served by mostly folks that have been there, done that, right? So 30 in your 30s, you're going to tell someone 60 in their 60 years plus that have had their business for the past 30 years how to do it. Maybe not. So most people in my space, they've either became an intermediary by either owning their own business, and they had some problem. They're trying to sell it. They're trying to sell their business, and they had some problems selling it. And in some cases, the broker actually screwed up. So, hey, I could probably do a better job than the broker. I might as well try to sell it myself. Did a great job selling it. And, what, I could probably have a new career doing this. That's actually how my partner Anthony started. He had about 3 Carvel franchises, which is in your, I don't know
Yeah.
if you know that story. He actually sold his Carvels. He's a recovering CPA, sold his Carvel franchises, and now he helps other, people sell their business.
Well, Carvel ice cream is, it's a legacy brand here in the Northeast, but
Mhm.
surprisingly, as it is a franchise nationally and actually internationally, they don't have a great name, brand name in outside of like the Northeast or the New York area for that matter. But
Mhm.
they've been around. I don't know, Carvel ice cream, Tom Carvel. I think since like the 1940s, perhaps. So
Yeah.
been around a long, long time.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, interesting. So I have to say, I love your shirt and your jacket, and you look spot on, man. You look like the Wolf of Wall Street. So
Oh man, thanks. My mom is in fashion, and I got I learned one thing from my dad. My dad is always pretty much well dressed, and you have to present yourself. So
that's right.
I'm always just like you. I mean, we were talking about it earlier. I mean, you always have some really nice, unique shirts. So I love
Well,
your choice of clothing there.
well,
You know.
thank you, thank you. And there's a story behind the clothing too.
Uh-huh.
It's like you have your story of your mom and your dad, and my dad was always a sharp dresser too. But for me, it was a whole different story because I used to be a subway conductor in the New York City subway,
Hmm.
opening and closing the doors and making announcements. And one day there was an old timer there who said, "Hey kid, this is a great job because you'll always have a shirt on your back.
Hmm.
That it'll never be a silk shirt, but you'll always have a shirt."
Right.
And I,
Right.
I, I was like, "Wait a second, that sounds like mediocrity to me."
Yeah.
Uh, and I wanted to wear a silk shirt. I looked around and I realized that business owners were wearing silk shirts, but transit workers were not. And
Hmm.
to use that metaphor,
Right.
and I not that there's anything wrong with it, but I wanted to have a silk shirt. And I figured, hey, I got to be a business owner, but how to do that, I don't know because I'm a government worker. I don't know anything about business. My dad was a police officer. I come from that kind of blue collar family,
Of
but I
course.
realized a franchise is a business with training wheels, and that's what I needed.
Hmm.
And so I
Hmm.
got into franchising. I quit after 13 years, bought a franchise, built it, sold it, made a ton of money, bought a second one, crashed it, lost all the money, came back, made money again.
Yeah.
And how that story goes. But it's all about the ability and the choice we have in this country to wear a silk shirt if you want to, but you have to
Right.
work for it. That's the thing.
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly. I've lost a tie lately. I've been wearing less ties. I've been full student tie. I would say in the past few months or so. I've been more relaxed these days.
Oh,
Let loose and relax without the tie.
I
Sometimes each outfit has its place too. If you're going to be walking
so
into a company, and if it's more of a blue collar type business, you have to kind of dress down a little bit. And if you're going to be walking to, it depends on the
yeah,
environment that you're in. But I'm comfortable with blazer, shirt.
that's cool. That's great.
Yeah,
I was just sharing with my son, not that this is a fashion show, but I
I
think it's
know.
interesting to note that, men, if you look at the old movies and old footage of whatever, men always wore hats. And when men, what made men stop wearing hats is in 1960, JFK, John F. Kennedy, presidential inauguration in 1960. He
Hmm.
was the first president to not wear a top hat at his inauguration. that signaled a decline of wearing hats in America.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Then the tie thing, you know, I guess it was mid 80s, late 80s, companies started doing kind of dress down Friday,
Yeah.
which meant that you could wear a suit without a tie. And it never really took hold until the company IBM adopted no ties on Friday. Once that happened, it was basically the end of ties. Um, and it's really they're kind of making a comeback now, as everything always does. Everything is secular, but it's interesting to kind of think about that, how kind of the world evolves, and now the whole tech world, they embrace no ties, they embrace wearing shorts and sandals to work, which,
Right, right.
which I don't approve of, but that's just me.
Unless you're working from home.
You're right. So we're talking about the 11 deadly mistakes that owners make. What do you see as the most common mistake out there?
Unrealistic expectations. You're just talking about tech and, you know, you hear, if you watch the news, you'd be fooled, right? You hear about companies selling for obscene amounts of money, and everyone thinks their company's worth 10 times more than what it's worth,
Right.
right? And most sales are privately done. No one really knows what the buyer paid and what the seller sold their business for the most part. It's not like you're selling a house. You can look in the MLS, you can see the history of what the house had sold for. So it's a two different worlds, and I really feel for business owners because most times they started a business or they bought it and they're burnt out and they're looking to retire, and most of their investments is in the business, right? Their whole retirement plan is actually dependent upon this business selling or whatever the case may be. So it is a very tough situation to be in, right? You want to realize all of the blood, sweat, and tears you put into the business. At the same time, it's when you work what someone's willing to pay for it. So we help give them a reality check as when it comes to the value of the company. So I would say not just unrealistic expectation of the price, but everything else. So you're a broker, right? You sell businesses, right? So all I got to do is, you give me all the buyers. You have probably 100 buyers. You can come and buy my company, and that's it. So there's also an unrealistic expectation about how long it takes to sell, what's involved in the sale, and then all the due diligence. I mean, so I would say out of everything else, I would say unrealistic expectations on behalf of the seller is the biggest mistake, apart from the other mistakes that come up along the way.
Yeah, and I think that the business is a lot like a house. Everybody thinks that their house is worth more than it really is,
Yeah,
and there's a market value to a house, and there's comps, and it's a little bit
exactly,
easier. But
exactly,
in our world, there's nothing like that.
right.
But is there a rule of thumb in your opinion about how much somebody could get for a business?
So it really depends. So the buyers, I mean, Tom, I mean, you sell franchises, right? So your buyers, they know what they want. They usually they're buying a cash flow. It's not a hobby. It's a business. The business has to make money. So it's all predicated on the cash flow, how much income the business generates. Now, the more income the business generates, there's usually less of those, right? And the less income it generates is usually more of them for different reasons, how it's run, yada, yada. So chances are, if you're buying a business with significant amount of revenues, you're going to pay a higher price for it. So the multiple varies depending on the income. Now, income is not obviously the only factor. There's also multitude of other factors. There could be some intellectual property. There could also be some intangible aspects to the business. We are seeing now a lot of buyers looking for skilled labor, right? In a market right now that um, jobs are available. People are getting, nice paid jobs.
Yep.
And there's a huge gap in the skilled workforce, not only in healthcare, but also in all of the specialty trades, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and so on. And we are seeing companies looking to make acquisitions just to retain key management and retain skilled workforce. So that's another huge aspect that ties into the value, and then also depends on how many of businesses like yours are available. So if there were 10 companies like yours, all with the same earnings per year, what is going to differentiate you from those other companies? Because the buyer is just like, I don't want to ask you bought your last car, but you probably went to all the dealerships, right? You was pricing around, right? So you probably have a set color, set type of car, make, model, yada, yada,
Yeah.
but you're checking online. Like me, I bought one of my cars in Ohio and I bought my other car in Pennsylvania. You know,
Oh,
I shopped around. So buyers are doing the same thing. They're shopping around. So what's going to differentiate your business from another business? So the multiple has a lot, is tied in not just the financial value, but the other intangibles and what the current market climate as well.
oh, wow. So, and I didn't realize that. So a lot of people feel like it's just a straight, three times EBITDA, as they say. But you're saying there's so many more variables involved with
Yeah.
just
So
not just a straight EBITDA.
when I got my certification from the International Business Broker Association, we had to take a class on recasting. Right? It was like a 3-day class. I went all the way to Vegas to take the class.
Wow.
But after 3 days of all these computations and running numbers and, doing all this valuation work, a lot of, in-depth stuff. At the end of the class, the instructor said, forget all what I told you, right? This is historical sales of businesses that I have, in my database over the past 10 years. And the average business sells for between 2.5 to 3 times multiple. So, it's like, okay, so what I'm here for the last 3 years, 3 days for. So there is a rule of thumb, but I want to go back to the real estate model. You can find a 3-bed, 2-bed, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, and you can run a comp. There's no business like yours. Every business is unique. So even though the rule of thumb may be, let's say, 3 times earnings, what can we identify in your business that could actually increase that number? So do you have a long-standing lease, right? Are you willing to hold a note? Do you have key management in place? Like, what's the terms? So it's a lot. There's a lot to it. So we have to negotiate, if we are representing the seller, the factors that actually would validate the multiple, and kind of hold strong to that particular multiple. But it's multiple. It's a multitude of factors. There's no one business is the same. So a rule of thumb for the industry may not apply to your business. However, with that being said, it is a basis. It is a benchmark that you can actually start from, and work from there.
So you said that it's a little bit different if the seller is willing to hold a note. Can you explain what that means for the audience?
So holding a note, essentially, so if you're selling your business, whoever is buying your business is financing it from somewhere, right? They have deep pockets, they're financing themselves. Now, keep in mind, they're not going to invest all of their money, right? No one's going to put all of their eggs in one basket, right? Most likely, they're going to go to a bank, okay? Going to leverage the bank's, other people's money to buy a business. In majority of cases, they would request the seller to hold a note, meaning that the seller becomes the bank in a sense. So there are advantages and disadvantages to that. Worst case scenarios, you hold a note and you never get paid. Right? Best case scenario, you hold a note and you get your money out within a reasonable period of time as agreed to upon a contract. So the same way that a bank would typically qualify a buyer, meaning, do they have the necessary industry experience? So they're buying a HVAC company. Are you a HVAC contractor? Have you worked for a contractor? Are you familiar with the business? How long have you been in the business? How much capital do you have to invest? Do you own a home? Do you have equity in your home? So the bank is going to ask buy those same questions. And with the seller becoming a bank, you want to pre-qualify along that similar criteria as the bank would. And the benefit to it is that there's a huge tax implication when you're paid out in full. So by holding the note, you could actually defer a portion of those earnings, so you don't have to get that big tax hit when you consummate the transaction, when you sell the business and you get paid out. So it's advantages and disadvantages, but holding note essentially means the seller becomes becomes a bank, and it's quite common.
Yeah, I want to clarify that because people like you and me start talking about a lot of jargon and lingo, and just want to make sure everybody is on board. So, what are some of the reasons why a business wouldn't sell?
So let's just throw the obvious out, right? I don't want to talk about the obvious. Everyone knows the obvious. It wouldn't sell because it's not priced right, right? We kind of spoke about it, before. I think one of the biggest reasons is it won't sell because even though it's a business, it's still people. It's a person buying another person's business. So out of all the deals we have done, by far, the reason we get the deal done, or if they're not done at all, is because the communication or the culture or the personalities is not a good fit.
Huh.
Okay. And it's not just buyer to seller. Company is acquiring another company. There's going to be some form of integration. So company culture is similar to ours. Did you grow organically like we did? Who's your key employee? They want to interview, right? Some of the key management. So one of the biggest factors is the human capital of the business, apart from the assets that the company owns. The biggest investment is actually who you hire and who you invest in as a person, who is in their seats and who's going to retain and who's going to stay with the business moving forward. So I think that's one of the biggest issues why deals don't get done.
That's amazing. And I feel like the same way in franchising too. Even when it's a brand new franchise, I tell people, you might love the concept, you might love the service or the food or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but if your culture, your morals and all that do not align with
Exactly.
the franchise company,
Yeah.
it's a non-fit, it's a no-go.
So for example, this podcast, if I didn't think Tom was a nice guy, I probably wouldn't come on the podcast. And if you didn't think I was a nice guy, you wouldn't have invited me on. So it is a people business. It is all about relationships and connecting. Another thing is a lot of the deals I'm working on right now, a lot of times the seller or clients will like someone that actually was just like them, right? So someone had similar background, similar skill sets. So I'm representing a distribution company, and the clients wants the priority is to sell someone that actually is in the business. Now, that to that point, yes, we want to find someone that has some background, has some experience, that can take it over and run. However, what we have seen lately is a lot of family offices, a lot of sponsored groups. So these are very sharp, very smart individuals that came from Ivy League schools and they've worked for Fortune 100 companies and so on, and they're tired of making money for other people. They probably have worked in investment banking before, and they've kind of been through the entire process, and they not necessarily have worked in that same capacity. However, they know how to grow a business, they know how to build it, and right now we're seeing a trend right now. So sellers have to understand that whoever is buying a business may not come from the same background as you are, may not have the same experience, the same knowledge. However, they're as equally as good as you may be, or even better, in taking what you have started. Because most of us, myself and probably you included, sometimes we're in a box, right? So you're in the franchise world, you knew everything about franchises. I know everything about selling businesses, but that may not be true. Sometimes you have to step outside the box,
Right.
or maybe bring someone else in the box and give you some ideas of what direction you should go in, give you some pointers.
Right.
And one of our first question is why are you selling the business to begin with?
Right. That's always my question.
Yeah, what I have this great business, a lot of people want to buy it, yada yada. Well, if it's so great, why you don't make it a legacy, a family legacy business, keeping a family and so on. A lot of times, if business owners get more proactive, a lot of things they can do to improve the valuation of their business. And even sometimes they can step out of that CEO seat, so to speak, hire someone to run the company, right? And sometimes in a case like that, you can actually reap the benefit of earnings perpetually until, until it's that time for you,
Right.
as opposed to having a definite infinite close. You close in 2 years, or the case may be, and you're paid out over that period of time, and you have a set amount of income, a set amount of money from that sale, as opposed to keeping the business going over the next 10, 20 years and
Right.
have someone running the company,
Okay. I mean, I think a lot of people, build their business so it is an exit strategy, but you have to know how to make that exit, and that's what you guys specialize in, right? I mean, it's not just about selling and you walk out the next day. There's a whole strategy to do it correctly. Just like selling a house, there's certain things you want to do, staging and painting and all of that. You got to get it
Right.
ready, right?
Yeah, of course, of course. You got to make, make it look good. You have
Yeah.
to, stage it. Like you say in the real estate world, you have to pretty much stage your business. Obviously, as a due diligence, you can't just put stuff in the closet and, don't expect no one's going to look in the closet, right? So, things are going to come out. But yeah, you definitely want to prepare the business and make sure that you're maximizing the value of your company.
What's the first thing somebody should do when they're getting ready to sell?
So the first thing you should do, so the question you want to ask is why you sell in the first place. And so part of my role with the IBBA, we have a committee that actually surveys all of the intermediaries. It's about 1,200 intermediaries in our association. So we send out these surveys. And the surveys ask multiple questions, how long business take to sell and why people sell and so on. So on the question of why do business owners sell, close to 80% of business owners sell because they're looking to retire. Okay, so if the answer is that, hey, I'm looking to retire from my business, how much money do you need from the proceeds of that sale to fulfill your retirement goals?
Right.
Who's going to answer that question? Tell me.
Well, the seller wants to say, I need all the money.
Right, but he needs, let's say, five, whatever the number is. So he needs to speak to his financial planner.
Right.
Right. He needs to speak to someone that could put together a plan, a retirement plan, and decipher if that makes sense. So the business is going to sell for whatever the number is, $1 million, $2 million. But my retirement plan, I need $5 million. So there's like a $3 to $4 million gap. So should I continue working, until I generate enough income where I can retire? Or is the pain of being in the business outweighs the money I can get when I actually sell the business? Sometimes spending time with your grandkids and having that lifestyle of playing golf, going fishing, doing those real fun things you used to do 20 years ago when you had a whole ball of, bunch of energy, sometimes that's priceless, right? So they may consider compensating on their retirement goals as far as the price to live their life now. However, not all business owners are that fortunate. Some actually have the capital, so they're not selling for financial reasons. They have money put away, they can go and do things. But some people actually, they need, all of their retirement is in their business, and they need the money from it. So
yeah,
retirement we see is one of the number one reasons why business owners sell.
So you want to start really with the end in mind, right? So
You just read my mind. You start with the end in mind. Yeah, I love saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's right on, because you need to know what you need so you know what to ask so you can get it, hopefully, or do the evaluation and then do the evaluation, realize that it ain't worth what you think it's worth. So you're gonna have to kind of keep it or take a loss and try to find something else to supplement your retirement is what that amounts to.
Yeah, well, let's step back for a second. Even before you started the business or bought the business, however you got into it, you bought the franchise. What's your end goals? As you point out, start with the end in mind. So you're buying a new franchise. Is your goal is to buy multiple units? Is your goal to buy a franchise or resale, build it up and flip it? Is your goal to create an asset that can be passed on to my kids? So, what's your goal here? Because selling a business, you don't ever want to, let's be honest here, right? Let's put it in a real estate world. Why do people sell property? Even look at Warren Buffett. Does he sell anything? He buys. You always want to build up your portfolio, right? You want to just have this accumulating assets, accumulating businesses, accumulating property. So sometimes you do have to sell because either there's an illness or you foresee shifts in the market. So in your industry, you've built the business up to a point where I don't think I can grow this business anymore.
Right.
I've put all of my, blood, sweat, tears into it. I need to bring someone else in. So you have to do the upfront planning of why you got in, and if you're in, what's the goal here? What's the next?
Right.
What's the game plan? And for that, you need advisors. You need to have, so we work as a deal team. right?
Yeah.
And depending on the situation, we would bring in, whether it be an attorney, a CPA, a planner, or a consultant to help that business get in a position where they can maximize that value and enhance the business. But not all owners are ready
Right.
to implement that. Because by the time they come to us, they're already checked out. I'm looking to sell. Can you help me sell? I would love to do all of these suggestions you have here, but I have a short window. Can you help me get a deal done? And we're thrown in there to help them out.
They just want to get out.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they want to get out.
So let's go to the other side of the table, the buyer.
Yeah,
So I'm
I
coming
love
in.
talking about buyers.
So I'm looking at. I want to buy a business. What should I be looking for? What are some of the telltale signs?
So buyers, so let me just tell you for some. So even though most of my clients are sellers that I represent, about 85 to 90% of my sellers, I do speak to more buyers than sellers on probably a 60-to-1 ratio. So during the course of my day, I'm speaking to buyers all the time. So as buyers, I can tell you what buyers are looking for. As a buyer, what you should look for is three things. The first thing we spoke about it too earlier, which is cash flow. So you have a family to support. Living on Long Island is expensive, right? Living probably anywhere in the U.S., with inflation and things are happening. So, you need to generate a certain amount of earnings to support your family and support your lifestyle.
Yep.
So that would be the first step. And obviously, there's processes and due diligence. You can verify the financials and verify the earnings the business is generating. So that's a no-brainer, right? Two things you want to focus on as a buyer. And I'm telling you from my experience, and I'm telling you from the experience of all the buyers that I speak with. One is, so you're buying a name a business. What's the most popular franchise you have right now?
Oh my God, there's so many, but
So,
a fitness business,
fitness
gym.
business. Okay, so that's a huge market, right? Everybody want to look good and stay in shape. Okay, now how many fitness businesses are there, right? Is there room for another fitness business? Right? So you want to look at the market, right? So you're buying a fitness business, right? You want to see, okay, so that particular person who had their gym, right? They have made, let's say, I don't know what the average fitness business generates in revenues on average.
Well, it's hard to say, and I'd rather not go down that
That's
road.
okay. That's fine. So let's
Slippery
say that
road.
let's say the business generates, just throwing numbers out there for hypothetical reasons, $1 million, right? And they have been at $1 million for the past 5 years. So is there really any room for growth in that industry and in that business in particular? So you want to look at, is there room to scale that business? What else can you do, Mr. Buyer? You're
Okay.
looking at a gym. What can you bring to the table to increase that gym from 1 to 2 to 3 million personally? And can the market support that need? Right? Do you need more locations, improve subscriptions, there's all kind of interesting gyms I'm seeing now that do all kind of interesting ways to exercise. So what else can you do? What's your value proposition? So bottom line revenue, earnings, and scalability, room for growth too. The third thing is, if you're reviewing an opportunity, you want to minimize your risk. Now, every business has risk, right? The business
Sure.
I'm doing now is risky. What you're doing is risky. Some are less risky than others. So what's your risk tolerance?
Ah,
Okay. So I think the risk is a huge factor. So when you look at risk, there's legal risk. So has the business been involved in any lawsuits, right? Is there any, sexual harassment was like a big thing. They had the whole sex harassment, you had a deadline to get training and so on. They have financial risk, right? So the gym generates $1 million in revenue. Is that legitimate? Can you verify that? Right? So there's a multitude of factors. Now, the other risk is, we talked about human capital. Who says that your top coach, your top instructor is not going to open up a gym, it's going to leave and open up right next door to you? So I think as a buyer, look at opportunity. The 3 areas you want to focus on the most is how much your business is generating. Is there room for growth? And also, how much risk is involved? And I would think I would start from there.
Yeah, it's all about the exposure and limiting that exposure.
Yes, yes,
Oh,
yes.
this is awesome.
And so I like these conversations because this is what I have with my sellers as well. I have these conversations with my sellers because I tell them, they're going to open you up like a can of tuna fish. I mean, you're going to be exposing everything, the good and the bad,
Man, it's
and
gonna
you have
smell.
to be prepared because buyers are going to ask these questions.
Yeah,
And sometimes you have to. I know you're an avid reader. I mean, you have to eat that frog. You have to get the bad stuff out first. Tell me all the. I mean, I could tell you a multitude of stories that I've been through where clients will wait till last minute to expose to let you know what's going on, and it can be a deal killer. And something you have to get creative to work around those
right,
scenarios.
right. It blows up the deal. I mean, it's a lot of times you'll find, not a lot of times, but every once in a while I've run into the fact that the seller has like 3 sets of books. It's like, what's going on here? You got
Mhm.
one for the IRS, one for himself, and one for the seller, and they're all different. And I'm like,
Yeah,
this is not legit, man. We
yeah,
need to like
yeah.
get out of here.
Yeah, it's a tough. I mean, I really feel for them because it's a tough because you're in your own world, you're running a business, and sometimes, like, who do you talk to as a business owner, right? Who do you go to if you have any problems? And sometimes you can't go to your competitors, right? You want
Right,
to keep some stuff in house, and you're tired of running to your spouse every time all the problems is happening. They don't want to hear all I mean,
right.
Thanksgiving just passed. You don't want to burden your family with all the stuff that's going on. And the key thing is having the right advisors around you. It starts with having some professional advisor can give you the right advice. So but when they come to us, we want to know who's your attorney, who's your CPA, and who's your planner. We start from there. We want to be introduced to them, we want to connect with them, just to make sure you're surrounded by the right people. And some, if you don't have good representation, we can recommend someone that can help you out.
That's awesome. I love that. Well,
Yeah.
Kyle, I got to thank you for being on, man. This is like one podcast that flew by. I have to tell you. We're gonna have to do more, man.
Yeah, it's so much you could talk about.
Oh my God,
Most
yeah,
definitely.
we could do a whole series probably. So this is great. I want to thank you for coming on. This is really good. Say hello to the guys over there for me,
Will do.
and I will see you at a business broker association meeting
It's
Tuesday
always
morning.
this is the second or third Tuesday. The next one is going to be in January, so you definitely get an invite. But hey, Tom, I really love what you're doing. I mean, you've come a long way, man. I've looked at your website and I'm like, man, Tom is kicking butt. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be in your podcast.
Yeah,
I'm very humbled about it. And franchise world is dear to me. We didn't actually operate a franchise too as well. So all things franchise I love, and I think as a business owner, if you don't have the necessary skill sets and you talk about risk tolerance, why not buy a franchise? Is a proven concept, is a blueprint. Someone has actually. You talk about all the mistakes, right? They already had all the mistakes done already. Just jump right in. You pretty much own your job. That's what it is. It's a business that you own, that you can, that's an asset you can grow. So franchise is a great way to start. And who you got to call? Tom, right? To get a
yeah.
franchise.
Well, thanks, man. Well, I appreciate that, and we'll talk more. If you're looking to sell your business, you got to reach out to Kyle. He works with people. I mean, he's based in New York, but can really advise people really anywhere. So give Kyle a call. The Kyle's information will be on the franchiseacademy.com website. Everything that you need, and including we'll upload the 11 deadly mistakes that business owners or business sellers make.
Yes, it's a great tool. It's a great tool.
Yeah, so we'll get that out to you guys. We have to go through next time we'll go through every single one of these rules.
You have a podcast for each one.
So much to talk about. Well, thank you, my
Thanks,
friend.
Tom.
I
You're the man.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
All
Appreciate
right,
it.
we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.